Thank you. Unfortunately, we've not been able to get the live stream working, so we're going to continue on. It is being recorded, and so will be available tomorrow morning up on the website. So, if you're making a submission, for example, you'll still be able to be viewed after tomorrow morning. So submissions is the next thing on our agenda. Council's governance rules permit members of the public to register to address an ordinary council meeting in relation to matters listed on the agenda. But in accordance with our rules, submissions can't be made in relation to notices of motion, petitions or items of urgent business. And in accordance with section 14.1 of our governance rules, submissions may be presented immediately prior to the agenda item being considered and prior to any motion relating to that item being accepted. So thank you to those people who have registered their intention to do this, and we will be hearing from you as per that statement immediately prior to the item 4 that will go to a motion. So thank you. That's, I think, a good time to be heard. So we'll move on now to petitions. So we have 4 petitions this evening. Before we call for the petitions to be tabled, I think it's probably useful just to explain the process for accepting a petition and what it means. So it's not Council's role to vote in, to vote in support or opposition of the content of a petition. Tonight we're simply performing a procedural function of accepting the petition and referring it to the CEO. So I note that these petitions relate to matters listed on the agenda and will be considered tonight by Council. So the first petition, Councillor Dimitriadis, do you wish to table the petition reprioritising the zebra crossing project outside Perry Street Childcare Centre?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I seek to table a petition concerning reprioritising the zebra crossing project outside Perry Street Childcare Centre to be referred to the CEO for consideration and response. The petition has been signed by approximately 11 people on the hard copy petition, as well as 426 signatures on the online petition, and this complies with the Council governance rules. The petition reads as follows. We want to encourage our families to walk to and from Perry Street Childcare Centre and ensure they feel safe in doing so. They continue, however, to raise safety concerns about the difficulty in crossing Separation Street in the vicinity of its intersection with Perry Street, speeding along Separation and Perry Streets, and frequent near misses at the intersection. Many other pedestrians, including school children and the elderly accessing the bus stops, use this intersection and experience similar safety challenges. The intersection of Perry Street and Separation Street is a stop-controlled cross intersection which can cause confusion for motorists approaching the intersection from the northern and southern approaches as to who has a right-of-way. This is further compounded by pedestrians trying to cross Separation Street and the location of the bus stop on the northwest and southeast sides of the intersection. As the width of Separation Street only allows for one vehicle to pass in each direction, when a bus is stopped, it completely restricts traffic movements travelling in the same direction as the bus. Vehicles are often observed seeking to overtake a stopped bus, only to have a near miss with a pedestrian crossing Separation Street, or a vehicle turning into Separation Street from Perry Street. Moreover, at twilight, when the sun is coming down, it can also be difficult for motorists to see pedestrians due to the reflection of the light. The installation of zebra crossings would assist in maintaining appropriate speeds along Separation and Perry Street. It would also highlight and prioritise pedestrians crossing at the intersection and allow them to safely access the bus stop and local services, including our childcare centre. In the Darebin Council-run Your Street, Your Say project Group B results, installing raised zebra crossings outside Perry Street Childcare received 86% support, one of the highest rated amongst other projects around schools, kindergartens and childcare centres. Despite this, Darebin Council voted to deprioritise these projects in favour of ones that received less community support. Sign this petition to show your support for the installation of raised zebra crossing outside Perry Street Childcare Centre. The petition signatories call on Darebin Council to reprioritise the Your Street, Your Say Group B project, design and install a raised intersection at Separation Street and Perry Street with zebra crossings across all 4 sides of the intersection near Perry Street Childcare Centre and Fairfield Primary School. Design and implement this project with urgency to prevent a serious incident or fatality at this intersection, and upholds its decision from 8th of January 2024 to ensure that children's safety is in the top 5 list of priorities to allow children to safely walk, cycle, take public transport or get dropped off at their school, kindergarten or childcare centre by reprioritising the above project. This petition is put forward with support from the Committee of Management of Perry Street Childcare Centre and Elizabeth Gorman Kindergarten.
Thank you, Councillor Dimitriadis. I'm now calling on Emily Novatsis. Are you here, Emily? Yeah, Emily is the submitter of the petition. Emily, you get 2 minutes to talk to the petition. So thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for having me. Look, I've been a member of the Committee of Management at Perry Street Childcare Centre and Elizabeth Gorman Kindergarten for 7 years, and 6 of those years on the executive team. When families and staff were continually coming to our committee raising their concerns about the intersection, saying how unsafe it is to cross, reporting near misses, I had a personal due diligence obligation to act. I didn't want a fatality on my watch, and I've tried hard to help Darebin Council understand the risks at the intersection of Perry and Separation Streets. Over multiple exchanges with the council and council transport engineers over the last 3 years, I was told our best option to influence the safety of the intersection was to complete the Your Street, Your Say consultation process. As you're aware, the intersection was one of the highest highest risk locations, and as Emily said, the proposal for a zebra crossing received 86% support. After reading that the zebra crossing and other kinder and school safety projects were deprioritised in 2024 by the former council, I sought to understand the governance processes applied by the council, and more recently, by the way of the petition, tried to understand the level of community support for having it reprioritised. And as Emily stated at last count, there was 426 signatures, and that was in just over a 2-week period. In my day job, I worked for Metro Trains as a general manager for safety operations. So I'm fully aware of the priorities needed to balance project decisions, and I know there's a finite budget for safety improvements. But I also know when the context of a risk changes, in this case, the increased traffic exacerbating the issue at that intersection, and when concerns of end users, in this case the community, are so overwhelming, these factors do need to be given additional weight in the controls proposed to mitigate the risk. My ask for the council is to give the due weight to the petition response and the voice of our community who experience the risk daily when making a decision on reprioritising the zebra crossing to make it safe to cross the street for our kids and the broader community and avoid what I believe is a predictable fatality at the location. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder to the tabling of the petition as moved by Councillor Dimitriadis? Thank you. Councillor Attari, I put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? So we have Councillor Attari, Councillor Boglis, Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Greco. We have a unanimous vote, actually. Thank you. Okay, so I declare the motion carried unanimously. Petition 2. Councillor Dimitriadis, you're going to get a sore throat. Would you like to move to table the petition Pitcher Park Community Battery?
Thank you, Mayor. I seek to table a petition concerning Pitcher Park Community Battery to be referred to the CEO for consideration and response. This petition has been signed by approximately 18 on the hard copy petition, which complies with the council governance rules, as well as 88 online signatories in support of the petition. This petition reads as follows. The petition is calling for Darebin Council and Gemina to consult with the residents around Pitcher Park, Alphington, regarding the potential installation of a community battery and what the local community benefits could be. Gemina's federally funded neighbourhood battery is specifically funded to be installed in Alphington. This is a great opportunity that could positively impact both the immediate community and show real climate action and leadership. Residents have been informed that Council has advised Gemina that there is no place in Pitcher Park where a battery could be installed. This means that the community will miss out on a variety of potential community benefits of the $500,000 federal funded project. The community believes there may be a feasible location for the battery that has not been previously considered by Council. There is potential for this project to beautify Pitcher Park, create more open space and support the vibrant Parkside Sporting Club. The community should have an opportunity to have input into all of this. By integrating the battery into the local electricity grid, Alphington could be a leading role model in demonstrating a tangible step towards enabling a renewable energy future. For a project of this magnitude, local residents and stakeholders feel that Council should engage with the community at the outset to put input into whether or not this project would be suitable for the location. This would be a great demonstration of Council's own commitment to involving the community in decision-making as per Council's community engagement policy. This petition is asking Darebin City Council to facilitate community engagement together with Gemina to allow the community to be informed about the proposal, understand the feasibility and what potential local benefits could come from the project. The site for which the community is seeking consultation with Council and Gemina is to replace the old unkept woody shrub that locals refer to as the rubbish or poo shrub next to the cricket nets, with a beautiful landscape area that may be able to be funded within the scope of Gemina's grant funding. This current shrub does not provide any shade. It is full of rubbish and weeds and also poses a safety risk by having such a bushy plant so close to the footpath that could conceal somebody and pose a risk to a passing pedestrian. The civil works and restitution could be designed in collaboration with the community as part of the works to install a battery. This area could house the battery, but also have plenty of space to provide improved biodiversity habitat and other amenity as would be determined with community consultation. For example, the project could potentially provide seating or storage for the club for cricket training or help reduce the club's electricity bills. It could be a net increase in nature and biodiversity and an increase in pen space and amenity.
Thank you very much. I should have mentioned we are back live streaming, by the way, for the last probably 10 minutes. Yeah. So now I'll call on Indy Lingham. Thank you. So Indy is the submitter of the petition. You've got 2 minutes to talk to it.
Thank you, Mayor and Councillors. Firstly, I do want to acknowledge the leadership and in climate action that Council has played over the years. Maybe very proud to be a Darebin resident. As a professional working in the local energy transition space, I was driven to create this petition as Council was unable to provide me with a written or with a justification that I felt was rational, objective and aligned with Council policy as to why Gemina has been told there was nowhere in Pitcher Park where this federally funded battery could go, and specifically why it couldn't go in the area that I've proposed near the cricket nets. The only reason which was provided to me was that Council was not willing to put these in open space. Australia's energy market operator, AEMO, has modelled that local battery storage is an essential component of an equitable and cost-effective transition to a 100% renewable energy future. One of our biggest problems facing the energy system now is there is so much solar power being generated in the day, but no way to use it or store it. The Alphington area is the perfect place for a battery where the solar exported from homes in the day can be stored in the battery and then set back into the local electricity network in the evenings. My discussions with the local community confirm that Council's decision, whilst well-intentioned, seems to be diametrically opposed to the community values and needs around climate action and the approach to open space. I believe this project could improve open space, public safety, community amenity, and demonstrate the strong climate action and community engagement that the community expects. This project and others like it could deliver on all 4 pillars of Darebin's climate emergency plan, as well as the council plan, and there appears to be no strategic justification that open space, nor this particular area, should have a blanket ban on community batteries. I urge Council to commence the community engagement process to enable a deep understanding of what the community wants and enable these learnings to be shared not only within Darebin, but more broadly with councils all over Australia who are dealing with the same challenges of competing demands on open space in this unprecedented energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, do I have a seconder to the tabling of the petition as moved by Councillor Dimitriadis? Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Solkis. I'm going to put the motion to the vote. So those in favour? And that's passed unanimously. So thank you. Third one, Councillor Dimitriadis. Would you like to move to table the petition Victoria Road, South Crescent, Northgate?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I seek to table a petition concerning Victoria Road, South Crescent, Northgate to be referred to the CEO for consideration and response. This petition has been signed by approximately 360 people on the hard copy petition, which complies with the governance rules, as well as approximately 250 people online who've signed in support of the petition. The petition reads as follows. On the 24th of June 2024, the previous Darebin Council voted to support the installation of separated bike lanes, changing the currently designed bike lanes that are painted on the road to the installation of concrete permanent barriers separating cyclists from vehicles along Victoria Road in Northgate from Separation Street to Darebin Road. Further, the previous council also voted to investigate improving cycling along Victoria Road from South Crescent, Northgate until Separation Street. We, the Darebin community, were not consulted on these changes to our streets. Introducing dedicated bike lanes with permanent barriers means removal of significant on-street car parking along most of Victoria Road, impacting loss of amenity and access to our homes and businesses. Victoria Road already has significant traffic volumes, and this will only increase if the road is altered for separated bike lanes. We, the undersigned, call on the new Darebin Council to put an immediate stop to these proposals and to commit that any changes to our streets will ensure the entire community is consulted, not just a select few.
Thank you. I now call on Cipriano, who is the submitter of the petition, and you also
Thank
have
you.
2
My
minutes.
name's actually Kipros Kiprianou, or Kip Kiprianou, not
Apologies.
Sip. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm a resident on Victoria Road and have been for 30 years. And with the proposed of a Victoria Road, I just needed to let people know with the petition. The hard copy petitions, myself and others have walked all of Victoria Road and spoken to residents and business owners that are really concerned with the proposals offered and the change to their not only them but also a lot of families I spoke to in the area had issues around disability and access and needed their vehicles. Not all have off-street parking. The other issue for businesses they were very concerned about how this would affect them as well. The petition, the hard copy, as was stated, the hard copy that we walked along and spoke to all residents was 300 plus, I think, and then online is 360 or going up even more. So it is a big issue. A resounding point that everyone made is they were more concerned about, as well as priority, was pedestrian crossings. So there's more points to cross Victoria Road and pedestrian crossings around facilities in the area, childcare, schools, and community centres, amenities, and things like that, and at the new swim centre as well. I urge the council to accept the petition and to divert their efforts and concentrate on these pedestrian crossings. May I just add that I've lived there for 30 years and I've been involved. I was also involved with residents, yep, I will, to reduce, believe it or not, the speed limit from 60 to 50 kilometres an hour. So this issue and to reduce the amount of trucks that use Victoria Road. So I think the council need to
We do need to
move
wind
their
up now.
priority.
Ross.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a second to tabling of the petition as moved by Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Boglis? Thank you. I'll put the motion to the vote. So those in favour? Unanimous. Okay, so thank you. Passed unanimously. Oh, sorry. Petition 4. I think this is the last one. Councillor Dimitriadis, do you wish to move and table the petition "No One Way in Railway Place, Fairfield"?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I seek to table a petition concerning no one-way in Railway Place, Fairfield, to be referred to the CEO for consideration and response. The petition has been signed by approximately 18 people on the hard copy petition, which complies with the Council's governance rules, as well as approximately 413 online signatures in support of the petition. The petition reads as follows. In June, Council launched the Your Street, Your Say campaign, engaging with the community on a series of proposals. However, buried within these plans were changes deemed trials that were never properly consulted with residents. One such proposal is the trial of a one-way traffic system on Railway Place, which would force all traffic to flow east to west only. This change would have a significant impact on local residents. Those living between Gilly Street to the east and Victoria Road to the west, including families, students, workers and commuters, would be forced to take longer, more congested routes via Heidelberg Road to access essential services like Fairfield and Alphington Primary Schools, Wingrove Medical, local shops and employment hubs. Heidelberg Road, already jammed with the traffic and bike lanes, would bear the brunt of this added burden, particularly the bottleneck at the left turn onto Station Street. The rationale behind the one-way proposal is to address rat running traffic using Railway Place as a shortcut to avoid the left turn onto Station Street from Heidelberg Road. While this is a valid concern, the one-way trial is an overblown blanket solution that will only worsen the situation for local residents. It's a short-term fix that fails to address the root cause of traffic issues and disrupts the daily lives of the entire community, forcing many to endure longer travel times and more congestion on already strained roads. We urge Council to consider the one-way proposal and explore more targeted, effective solutions to reduce through traffic without compromising residents who rely on local roads for easy access to their homes and essential services.
Thank you, Councillor Dimitriadis. Now I'll call on the submitter of the petition, George Duvos, to present for 2 minutes. Thanks, George.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, can you hear me? Yeah. Well, the petition pretty much says everything. I did speak to a lot of people in the area and the concerns were all varied. Most people along Thompson Street and that side of town were worried about coming in through shortcuts, pretty much taking their kids to school and cutting, effectively cutting their time if they had to go around the long way. The businesses were worried about through traffic. A lot of people who might not want to turn left might take Grange Road and won't go through Station Street, and they will be concerned about losing business. All three chemists, in fact, signed the petition, were concerned about increased delivery times for medications and stuff like that, which was a concern. And the manager from Australia Post also signed the petition, being pretty concerned about it. Now, rat running is a problem, I agree, but I feel that I'm in Gilly Street, and look, a lot of the people I spoke to in Gilly Street weren't really aware of the rat running. And I just feel that if we do this to deal with the rat running in Gilly Street and Rathmines, it'll sort of throw everyone out just for our sort of problem. So I feel that we should probably have a more targeted response to the rat running rather than sort of... And of course, even the businesses along Railway Place as well were a bit concerned So it just seems that I think anywhere you close a main road or a road where traffic flows, it's just going to have a knock-on effect. And, you know, more traffic on Heidelberg Road is going to create more problems even for cyclists and motorists, pedestrians. So at the moment, Railway Place sort of eases that flow. So I urge you guys to reconsider. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask for someone who's happy to second the motion put forward by Councillor Dimitriadis. Councillor Salkos is seconding that. Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Okay, everyone. So that is unanimously carried. Thank you. Okay, so that's the end of the petitions. Thank you once again to our community members. It's always fantastic to hear from the community and to hear what's important to you all. So now, councillors, we've got a very large agenda, and we've because of the large amount of community interest for this meeting, we have already used up quite a bit of time. So I am going to again see if we can try and keep to time as much as possible. So I will permit questions of officers prior to the commencement of debate on each item. If I think sufficient questioning has occurred, I'll exercise my right under the governance rules to limit questions and ask the debate to commence. I'll also ask that only the mover, seconder and any councillor against a motion speak to the motion, if at all possible. Okay, so thank you. Okay, first item is 9.1. We have had some quite late amendments come in for this one, and it's quite an important matter. I also understand that we can continue on so I'm going to propose that we put this on hold till next meeting so that we can properly discuss and understand the implications of the changes. I understand, and perhaps I'll just ask the question again, that this would not hold up the process of recruiting a new CEO.
Through you, Mayor, no, it wouldn't. If we were to defer this item, we could continue under the existing policy.
Is that a question of an officer?
No, I was going to ask if you need a procedural motion to defer this until the next meeting. In which case I would be very happy to move that procedural motion. Do you need the number under the governance rules?
9.1, yep. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I've got it flagged here. I have got a lot of flags.
9.2.
That's the one, 9.2 subsection 2. I propose that we defer item 9.1 for consideration at the February meeting, which is the 24th of February, I believe.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Those in favour? And that's carried unanimously, so thank you. So we're going to 9.2, revisiting your street, your say.
I have an alternate motion that I'd like to raise for 9.2.
Okay.
I have a few questions for officers before we get to debate, Mayor, if that's okay.
Okay, so we've also got 11 submissions on the item, so I believe we hear those before we go into debate. Do we start with those? Yeah, so we're going to start with the submissions first. I'm going to call out the name of the person putting in the submission, and if you can please approach the lectern, you'll have 2 minutes to make your submission. If you're joining online, please turn on your camera and microphone. If you're experiencing technical difficulties, please let the Zoom host know. So I'm going to start with Sally Moxham. So 2 minutes, Sally.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Sally Moxham and I'm a Northcote resident. I speak tonight representing Streets Alive Darebin. We are a local residents group that wants to see safer streets for people, whether they walk, cycle, use public transport or drive. I'm speaking in support of continued delivery of the South Crescent modal filter and the investigation of safe cycling infrastructure for Victoria Road. These roads are key cycling routes used by our community, but they pose safety risks. The officer's report rates South Crescent risk as extreme. The officer's report demonstrates that the risk more than halves through the introduction of a modal filter which will deter rat-running traffic. For Victoria Road, this is an area that will see increasing use by all road users going to the swimming pool. We know that a cyclist was killed outside the pool through a vehicle collision and there have been several serious incidences that have occurred in that section of the road. Council and councillors have a responsibility to act on road safety data. These are council-controlled roads. Councillors should also note that both South Crescent and Victoria Road both feed into the Westgarth Street. Westgarth Street has been designated by the Victorian State Government as a key strategic cycling corridor, tagged for future funding. This enables people to ride into the city and back safely, and these are key roads. Reversing a decision on these projects would make a farce of the community consultation work that Council has done to date. It would call into question the purpose of community consultation for future Your Street, Your Say projects. I ask councillors, what does this say to our community? And how does this help provide a strategic approach to cycling safety in Darebin? Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Our second submission is by Claire Hayes. Thank you, Claire.
Hi, how are you? My name's Claire Hayes. I'm a resident of Fairfield and I'm also the Vice President of Perry Street Childcare Centre and have been for about 5 years. I cross Separation Street with my 6-year-old and 4-year-old twins every day, and it's like Russian roulette. So the traffic banks up at the traffic lights and banks back right past Perry Street, and you have to sneak out with these 3 tiny children, holding them all to look and see if there's another car coming the other way. At the same time, the motorists have been so, banked up on Grange Road or Perry Street, and when they get to that set of traffic lights, they just put their foot down and go for it. My young family's all in the way. But it's not just me that copes with that. All my neighbours cope with that. It's that intersection is a main crossing for Perry Street, Alfred Nuttall, Fairfield Primary, St Anthony's School and Thornbury High. It's a key topic among neighbours, and we'd love you to change it and build a safe crossing at that so we can get to childcare and school safely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have an online submitter, Carl Sharika. Are you there, Carl? Carl's coming. Okay, welcome, Carl. You have 2 minutes to speak to your submission. Thank you.
Thank you. As a parent of 2 teenagers who live near Dennis Station, people in my family and I use South Crescent most days of the week. I've walked along it, ridden my bike, caught the train alongside it, and at times I've driven part of it. Can't think of a single time that I've driven from Westgarth Street all the way to Victoria Road or vice versa. Alternatives along Basting Street or Westgarth Street are simpler and better when I'm driving. My kids walked along it to Westgarth Primary and they usually ride along South Crescent on their way to Northcote High now. Anyone who looks at South Crescent before and after school will see kids on bikes of all ages, parents accompanying the younger ones, commuter cyclists heading in or out of the city, and people just getting around. It's the most obvious way to ride, while we have far better alternatives when we drive. I accompanied my son along South Crescent when he was 8, riding next to him, and got revved and honked by an impatient car driver trying to overtake us. I've had to swerve and brake suddenly to avoid cars coming the other way, dodging around parked cars. In 2023, Council asked the community what they'd like, and the community told Council that this is a top priority for cyclists in the area. Yet Council debated it several times between December 2023 and June 2024. Backtracking on this project now tells the community that you don't listen to what residents want. No wonder people are cynical about politics when easy community-supported measures to make travelling around safer for kids and young people are pushed to the bottom of the pile. Resurrecting this issue now, straight after the council election, makes it look like the new majority of councillors don't want to support anything to do with bikes and cycling. I ask you not to politicise this. You can have your fights with the Greens, but don't play politics with our safety. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have, sorry, I've lost my track. Dimitri Lafleur, who I think wasn't there last time. Not on, okay, not here tonight. Nina Collins. Nina should be online. Not there either. Okay.
Mayor, I believe Nina's, as I mentioned earlier, she sent her apologies. She couldn't attend this evening due to family commitments.
Okay, okay. Yeah, apologies, you did mention that. Jessamine House. Yeah, I think she was here earlier, but she's left. Susan Newton online.
Thank you, Mayor Lawrence. It's Suzanne Newton here with a submission. And councillors, I implore you to really consider your vote on this item. Having served 8 years as a councillor, the report before you has some of the clearest and strongest language I've seen from council staff. They tell you that crashes and near misses have occurred at the chosen sites at South Crescent and Victoria Road, that without intervention, collision rates are unlikely to improve. They tell you about the liability that could come from if a decision is taken to not act on a road safety risk that has been assessed as extreme using national guidelines. At the last council meeting, I heard you talk about children's safety when you supported the motion to reconsider already approved Your Street, Your Safe projects. My question to you is which children? Children deserve to ride safely. I ride an e-bike with my 2-year-old son on a seat on the back daily, and I'm not the only one. We often ride along Victoria Road to get to Northcote Aquatic and Recreation Centre. However, I feel I have to really brace myself, particularly when turning right onto Victoria Road when leaving the pool. In 2017, a man was killed by a truck driver while riding a bike just there. If that isn't enough justification to see safety treatments for people that ride bikes near the pool, I don't know what is. Everyone had the opportunity to participate in the Your Street, Your Safe consultation, and hundreds of people did. They participated in this consultation in good faith, expecting they would be listened to when they said, for instance, they don't feel safe riding to Westgarth Primary along South Crescent. Councillors, if you choose to vote to suspend already begun projects and feasibility studies, to remove approved projects from South Ward and add projects to South East Ward, you not only waste $45,000 of ratepayers' money, you're telling the community that evidence-based decision-making and community engagement isn't important to this council. I urge you to consider how you vote carefully and think about the message you are sending to residents when you do. Thank you.
Thank you. The next submission is Sonia Eskildsen. Not here. Okay. Mark Saylor. Also not here. And Peter Gonis. Can we just check if Peter is outside? He was here apparently. Welcome, Peter. You've got 2 minutes to talk to your submission.
So this is in regards to the Victoria Road petition. Is that correct? I'm speaking on behalf of that? Or has that already been spoken on?
Spoken to?
I'm a little confused here.
I think, hang on a moment. So you can talk to the Your Street, Your Say, but not necessarily to the petition, is that correct? Yeah, no, so not specific to the petition, but just to the Your Street, Your Say item 9.2.
Yeah, I'm here for the petition, to speak on the petition. Your Street, Your Say.
Okay, so we've already had that one, is that correct?
Sorry, Mayor, just to clarify, I think Peter might be wanting, the petition is about Victoria Road.
Yeah.
So I think he might want to speak about Victoria Road
Yeah.
in the Your Street, Your Say debate.
So the same thing, the
Yeah.
petition?
Yeah.
Yeah, so sorry, Peter, we have already had a speaker. Yeah.
Okay, so you only allow one speaker.
No, as in,
Yeah, it's
Your-
confusing.
Can speak to item 9.2,
Which
but not
includes
specifically
Victoria
to
Road.
the petition.
he can, yes, but he can refer to the number of signatures and stuff in a petition if needed.
Go ahead, Peter. You've got 2 minutes.
Oh, well, my concern, I have a couple of points. My concern is safety. Now, I've been riding from Reservoir to Brunswick for over 10 years, and for my safety, I've kept to the dedicated path down the middle of St George's Road, and I would normally exit off at Arthurton Road, but because it's so dangerous, I would take the side streets all the way up to virtually Sydney Road. So my concern is people shouldn't be on major roads. Cyclists should not be on major roads because it's so dangerous. That's my view. For their own safety, they should take alternative routes, and the council officers should explore alternative routes rather than just taking everyone's parking away and no one will be able to park anywhere. We've also spoken to people employed at the pool. Now, people who are employed at the pool are not allowed to park in the pool car parking because it's not enough car parking. So where are they going to park? Are they going to park 1, 2, 3, 400 metres up the road in the side streets? That's ludicrous. So, and also point number 2, I'm concerned about consultation. Darebin officers, council officers don't seem to engage in consultation, which is in line with the Darebin Council's Community Engagement Policy, which is aligned to Public Engagement Framework 2021-2025, which includes obtaining feedback on a project, working with stakeholders is key to addressing local issues. So where are the council officers' consultations when it comes to this?
We need to wind up there, Peter. You're about 15 seconds over.
Yeah, I urge the council officers to actually follow the council's own policy, engage.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much. That's the end of the submissions. Thank you to all of the community members for taking your time to come along and present those submissions. Again, really great to hear from the community. If there are no further questions, we are now going to move. Yeah. Do we need to? Okay. So, are there any questions for officers regarding this item? Councillor Greco, and then, Councillor Greco.
Thank you, Mayor. The question I have, after hearing all the submissions tonight, what will be the implications of pausing the existing projects in terms of their future finalisation, if money was to become available?
Go ahead, Alan.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Through you, Mayor. The impacts of pausing the projects that are currently being delivered, there are multiple. There are road safety implications, putting risks to our community that are using those routes, currently exposed to risks. There are potential future contract increased costs for terminating contracts partway through. And the implication for council for changing its mind partway along may have reputational image damage as well.
Okay, Councillor Jelly.
Thank you. I have about 3 questions, if that's okay. First of all, would a bike path on the railway reserve on the south side of South Crescent potentially require removal of trees and shrubs? And would that affect local biodiversity? And would such a bike path be able to support the volume of pedestrian traffic and bike traffic that's actually been observed in the area? Shall I continue to ask all of my questions and then we'll take them one at a time?
If we can just get answers to those,
Sure,
might just check if anyone else has got any questions and come back to you. So, yeah.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Jelly, through you, Mayor. There is a sealed pedestrian footpath between Mason Street and Plant Street existing. It takes up the available width between the trees and the rail reservation. It is not possible to expand that path without extending into VicTrack land, and the width of a cycle-only facility, which would be suitable for a strategic cycling corridor, could not be accommodated. To the east of Mason Street, there is a muddy path, which is very well used by people walking their dogs and going to destinations in the local area. For a off-road cycle-only path, it would require the removal of some trees, and the width of that would also encroach into rail land, which would be extra complicating. Thank you.
Councillor Salkos.
Thanks, Mayor, through you. I just have one question to officers. When the projects were reprioritised in June 2024 from the previous motion on the 8th of January, can you confirm that the June 2024 report gave no weighing to the community feedback whilst using the capital works prioritisation tool?
Thank you for the question, Councillor, through you, Mayor. At the June 2024 meeting, the officer recommendation was informed by extensive community consultation, where the draft concept plans that were presented to the community to seek feedback on were considered, and technical analysis and preferences from the community were deeply considered, and where required, some projects were amended to either fit the road conditions that the local community was able to tell us about, and those recommendations were made to Council for consideration.
Point of clarity, so the community consultation was not taken as a weighing percentage in the prioritisation of the projects.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Sarkos. Through you, Mayor. In the development of the locations that require the most amount of treatment, dating right back to the first round of community consultation, the multi-criteria analysis tool supported by community feedback, which helped prioritise the locations. So the locations for investigation were informed by community. The design solutions that were drafted and endorsed by Council to take to the community for feedback were informed by technical analysis and the information that we got from community at that time. Once the second round of consultation feedback was analysed, because the community feedback was already assessed through the multi-criteria analysis tool at Group 1, at Round 1, and feedback was incorporated into the design solutions that we heard from the community during Round 2, the Capital Works prioritisation tool did not include community feedback as a ranking metric.
Okay, thank you. Going to go back to Councillor Jelly now.
Thank you, not the other Jolly. Thank you very much. Thank you. Through you, Mayor. What's the best way for us to maximise the remaining budget from Your Street, Your Say, and also incorporating the facts of the papers tonight mentioned that there is possibility of grant funding upcoming. And I'm a bit confused. Is it possible for council to delegate the authority for deciding which programs are funded by which funding stream to officers? Like, can we give direction in terms of which projects and then leave it for the expert to decide sort of, which funding stream that comes from?
For your question, Councillor Jelly, and through you, Mayor. Firstly, if I may, Councillor Salkos, with your prior question, I'd like to also share that the capital works projects that Council proceeded with were also consulted as a part of the budget process as well. So I wanted to share that with you. Councillor Jelly, thank you for your question. I would recommend that councillors would make the decision around what projects might be funded out of what program, and officers will provide support, and officers are recommending that we bring a report to you in February to share upcoming grant opportunities and to resolve what projects council would consider to put forward for those upcoming opportunities.
Thank you. I'm going to move on now. Councillor Demetriadis, yeah.
Mayor, I have an alternate motion. Thank you.
Okay, it's up on the screen now. Okay, so I'm presuming, do we have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Salkos. Does the mover wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through you. So I'll start off by way of background for anyone new to the Your Street, Your Say Group B issue. And on the 8th of January 2024 last year, Council decided to prioritise the Your Street, Your Say projects that ensured children's safety were the top 5 priority projects for Darebin. These top 5 projects ensured that children could walk safely, cycle safely, take public transport or get dropped off outside their school, kindergarten or childcare centre in the safest way possible. However, at the council meeting last year on the 24th of June, the previous council voted to reprioritise these projects so that the top priority projects were those listed in point 1 of the officer's recommendation in the agenda. Which interestingly enough, these projects received the least support from community members during consultation. Therefore, given the results of community consultation from...
Point of order, Mayor. Apologies for interrupting, Councillor Demetriadis. Point of order under point 10.1, I believe that's misleading or a false statement under point G, that these are the lowest rated items.
Sorry, Mayor, I said less support.
Yeah, I think less
I
support
withdraw.
is fine. Yeah.
Sorry, as I was saying, received a less support from community members during community consultation in comparison to the 5 that were prioritised. And in that instance, they were actually less supported. So therefore, given the results of community consultation for the Your Street, Your Say Group B area did not reflect the council's list of priority projects, I raised a motion at last month's meeting to realign council's priorities with those that the majority of the community expected us to prioritise, being children's safety around schools, kindergartens and childcare centres. So here we are tonight. We have a report from the officers recommending that council continues the Your Street, Your Say Group P projects that received less support from the community, and I'm raising this alternate motion that's on the screen to make sure community voices are front and centre of our decisions. This alternate motion, I believe, is a good balance that considers the safety concerns raised here tonight from all members of the public. Firstly, it prioritises the crossings at Perry Street Kindergarten and Thornbury High School, which we heard from a number of submitters tonight, and from many parents over the years, that it's currently extremely unsafe and dangerous for both cyclists and pedestrians to cross at this intersection. Secondly, the alternate motion looks at ways that council can obtain funding for many of the other projects, some of which were also recommended by officers for future grants. It also looks at options to provide safe crossings for cyclists, pedestrians and car drivers near the entrance to the Northcote Aquatic and Recreation Centre, which has been a huge safety concern for many. And finally, the alternate motion replaces the projects that received little support or did not go to community consultation, such as the one-way trial along Railway Place, but it also commits council to work with the state government. With the state government and VicTrack to install a suitable cycling solution on the VicTrack land alongside the south side of South Crescent. So I hope everyone can support it.
Thank you. Did the seconder want to speak?
I'll reserve my right.
Okay. Does anyone want to speak against the motion? Yes, Councillor Jelly.
Mayor, I would like to move an amendment to this motion that I circulated this afternoon. And I'd also like to foreshadow that I have a foreshadowed motion that I circulated even earlier today that is more aligned with the officer's recommendation. So that's my amendment that's up on the screen there.
So I think there are chunks of this that would be considered in opposition to the first motion, in which case this becomes an alternate motion. Correct?
If you deem it to be in conflict with the, sorry, Mayor, if you deem it to be in conflict with the motion that's been put and has been moved and seconded, then it becomes an alternate, and it only becomes into play if this one is lost. An amendment needs to add or subtract a little bit to the motion, not to the officer recommendation that's in the papers.
So this does add to the motion itself, and it does, I believe, retain the core of the intent of the original motion that's on foot here, and make some changes further down. I believe, perhaps I misinterpreted the governance advice I received this afternoon about this amendment.
We can seek some advice for you if you'd like to take a short adjournment.
Yeah, we might have a short adjournment because I didn't see this one earlier. I'm sorry. Okay. No.
Do you need a procedural motion to call an adjournment, or do you have?
No, just read the statement down the bottom.
Okay, so the meeting is now adjourned for 5 minutes. And please note that the live stream will remain on during the break. So I ask that you please ensure your microphones and cameras are turned off until directed otherwise. Thank you. Okay, we're going to come back. Can we have the second amendment motion up on the screen, please? From Councillor Jelly, yeah. So has everyone had a chance to read that now? Yep. Okay. Are we back on live? I think we didn't go off live stream. Are we back on live stream? Yes, we are. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go to the mover and seconder of the motion. Do you accept this this new motion?
No, Mayor.
No.
Okay. So in that case, I'm going to deem it an alternate motion. And so what will happen is if this one doesn't get up, we go to the second motion. Okay. So do we have, can we go back to the first motion? Emily, on the screen? Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor, could I just clarify? Because I also mentioned that I had a foreshadowed motion should this one fail, which would be the amended officer's recommendation that is circulated earlier today. I think that would be, so I'm withdrawing any of the amendment to this motion. And if this fails, then we can take another step and we'll potentially deal with another motion, which was circulated earlier today.
So you're withdrawing this one?
I'm withdrawing
and you want to foreshadow potentially another, the earlier one that you circulated?
So my intention was, pardon me, through you, Mayor, to amend this motion, but my apologies, I didn't. It didn't occur to me that would fall afoul of the rules around it being in opposition to the. So my apologies to Councillor Dimitriadis, and I'm sorry we didn't get to talk about this earlier today. And I had mentioned earlier in the day, I don't know, about 2 o'clock or something, that I'd sought officer feedback on an early motion, kind of like a substantive motion, which is much closer to the officer's recommendation. So that, I believe, should be the foreshadowed motion.
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries. And do appreciate your attempts to make that motion as close to the one that was put up, but just, yeah, certainly not quite in line with what was the original concept. So is there anyone else who wants to speak to this motion? To the one up on the screen.
So I think we've only had questions thus far. Yes. Have we not? Yes.
Oh.
So the mover.
Apologies, I lost track. So would the mover like to speak? You spoke and he reserved his right. So is there anyone else? I was right. Any other speakers?
Do you want to go?
Yes, you can speak against.
I'm going to go falling in. Sorry, through you, Mayor. I would like to speak against this motion and to speak in favour of the officer's recommendation, which gives us a clear opportunity to have the best of both worlds. I'd just like to make the point that the officer's recommendation may not have had the highest number of support from community members, but it does have...
Point of order, Mayor. I've just put to you that the comments, and I might be in the wrong here, that speaking directly to the officer's recommendations are not actually relevant to the motion that's on the table.
I think...
Okay, I can readdress, yes. Okay, so the reason that I'm speaking against this motion is I don't think that it takes account of the officer's recommendation that this, the officer's points that the highest risk of fatality is going to happen along South Crescent. So by putting South Crescent off and stopping the work that's been going ahead, it's putting our residents at danger, at risk of fatality. There's been a long history of officer recommendations and expert advice being ignored, and I think that this alternate motion is ignoring the officer recommendations. So that's why I'm speaking against it.
Okay. Do we have any other speakers for the motion? Yes, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. If we're going back and forth for and against, I just want to start off by thanking the individuals and organisations who came out to speak for and against. I think it shows the strength of our democracy here, as you mentioned, in the lead up to petitions and submissions, Mayor. I just want to quickly go back to the decision in June 2024 has been canvassed many times, and the advice that we just received that paints your street, your say, with a bit of an irony that the advice that the decision in June 2024 was based on had no waiting for community consultation, and I think that's very ironic given the title of the survey that's run by council. In particular, I want to give a shout out to Perry Street Childcare Centre and Thornbury Secondary College, and indeed Streets Alive, the organisation who didn't send me a survey during the campaign but gave me 2 ticks for active transport support. So that's good as well. I just want to also point out in clause 2, it doesn't completely knock off a lot of the projects that are being reprioritised. In particular, the safe crossing for cyclists and pedestrians outside NARC, which has been raised by a number of organisations and individuals for and against the motion. So I think that's a good balance that has been struck in this alternate motion. And also, I did want to raise as well the fact that, going back to my first point, that community consultation should be at the centre of this, and the feedback that has been received by members of the community, as outlined in great detail, I won't go through it again, by Councillor Demetriadis, should be weighted quite significantly in this debate. And I've just received advice as well that a lot of the trees along the south side, or the north side rather, of that train corridor is actually desert ash and a major weed species. So hopefully that's taken into account when this motion is hopefully carried, and I commend the motion to the House.
Thank you. I believe Councillor Jelly, you had something you wanted to say in opposition? No? You had your hand up earlier.
I believe I'm not the only...
Councillor O'Brien. Yeah, so I'm just alternating from...
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Councillors, there is absolutely no good reason to... If you could scroll down, we could see the rest of the motion here, and I would contend that there is no good reason to cancel the South Crescent modal filter. Not a single community member is asking us to cancel the modal filter for South Crescent. This project is already underway, and we can actually deliver it this financial year. And that is what is contained in my foreshadowed motion, should we get the chance to deliberate on that. I also note that we have significant support for safer crossings at Perry Street and near Thornbury High School, and noting that there were 62 people in the round 2 surveys who supported the Perry Street crossing, and also 22 people who supported the Thornbury High School crossing. But in addition to that, we had more than 50 people in that same consultation who did support the modal filter at South Crescent, and we've had over 200 people sign the petition. We heard that from Carl Sherricker earlier today about that. There is no justification to ignore the extreme risk that that South Crescent poses for people who are riding and cycling, particularly not in an environment where we have overwhelming community support and we actually have the option to fund all of these projects. There is no need to cancel any of them. It appears that this motion is not really about supporting our community or listening to their concerns or addressing the most pressing safety measures on our streets. It doesn't represent good value for money. In fact, it's a waste of money. We will be flushing money down the toilet if we don't proceed with projects that are already contracted at the moment. We have an obligation as the Municipal Road Authority to make our roads safer. We have the funding in our budget to do this for South Crescent, and we have the opportunity for grant funding that will be briefed to us just next month and the next coming weeks, that will give us further opportunity to actually deliver on all of these projects. So I urge you to vote against this motion so that we can have a proper discussion about how we can actually fund all of the projects that the community is asking us to back. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start to wind this up. If there's anyone else for, and then we've got one more person against. Anyone else want to speak for? Okay, Julie, sorry, Councillor O'Brien, against.
Thank you, Mayor. So, as a councillor trying to understand all of the ins and outs and stops and starts with these projects, I share the dismay that's been expressed by many in our community about this being back on the agenda again. Firstly, I think that it is deeply problematic that we have a notice of motion process that can be gained to get items in the mix for consideration that go beyond the $5,000 limit that this type of motion is legitimately used for. Right now, we can clearly see what eventuates when the noms are used in this way. We basically find ourselves, again, re-prosecuting something that's been in this chamber this is the fourth time now. And these projects have been spoken to before, and what we're debating is well in excess of a $5,000 limit right now. So the amount of wasted time for community and staff and the effort that this represents, I think, is actually deeply problematic. And I look forward to the improvements that we will make to the notice of motion process to shore up this loophole. I understand, and we've all heard tonight, how animated the community is on these issues. And I do thank all of the community for being part of the conversation and again, contacting us on this matter. But despite thanking them, I think most reasonable community members would understand that their consultation and their input is part of a process, and there are lots of other things that are weighted in when you're considering and assessing everything under every programme or project that you will assess. So I do think we've had that process. We've had the community consulted. The officer recommendations on this couldn't be clearer, and it's important that all of us, valid though our opinions are, we trust the experts, and these are the experts of the matter at hand. We've had additional information on the bike path along the railway tonight not being feasible for various reasons. We need to trust these experts. Ignoring this advice is not good governance and poses safety, liability and reputational risks. Thank you.
Ooh, thank you. Okay, I also want to thank, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Greco.
Yeah, I'd like to speak in favour of the motion. Yep. The reason why I'm standing to speak in favour of the motion is to be consistent with my position back in June last year when we dealt with this issue. At the time, I supported the essential elements that Councillor Dimitriadis is putting forward. The key thing that's governing my thinking in relation to what is being put forward here is about building trust with the community in the sense of ensuring that we listen to the community and that our consultation processes are as robust as possible. As we all know, the Monitor's report, the previous Monitor's report, consultation was one of the key issues that this council needs to deal with. The final point that I would make is during the break, I just followed up on the question that I asked earlier. I didn't want to take up the time of council by having follow-up questions, so I asked our officers about the costing associated with pausing some of the projects. Whilst the report talks about a $45,000 sunk cost, my understanding from the conversation I've just had, that's if we abandon the projects. If we don't abandon the projects and were to proceed with them, if we could find money for them, at least in the next few months or at least up to about a year or even more, there will not be that extent of a sunk cost. So we've got to put that into perspective, and rather than getting frightened by saying that if we don't proceed with the projects that have been paused or deferred to other funding sources, that we've lost that money that we've already spent on. It will only be a marginal loss, a minimal loss, and that's my understanding from the conversations that I've had. So on those three bases, I'm supportive of this motion in order to remain consistent with my position in June last year.
Thank you. We're going to move to the vote now. Before we do that, I also just want to thank all of the community members who've had a say tonight via emails, via phone calls. It's really been a hot topic, so clearly one that the community cares deeply about, and there, of course, are a range of different opinions. So, but thank you all for voicing your opinion. We have talked a bit about the process of the Your Street, Your Say, and certainly that responsibility for community consultation sits with us as a group of councillors, so we need to make sure that community consultation works how we think, how we want it to work, and so, the staff are following what was the directions at the time. So, so we need to obviously highlight an area we would like to make some change, so that's great. So I'm going to just ask for all those in favour of the...
Sorry to interrupt, Mayor. Just a point of order. Are we waiting to hear from the seconder of the motion and a writer of reply for the mover? Just a governance question.
I don't think as an alternate motion... Yeah, so sorry. So the seconder doesn't want to end with the amended motion. There is no right of reply, so I think that stands for an alternate motion as well.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay. So all those in favour of the motion on the screen? So that's Councillor Arturi, Councillor Boglis, Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Greco, Councillor Salkos and myself, and all those against? Councillor Jelly, Councillor O'Brien and Councillor Sangster. So that motion is passed. So thank you. I can try and move a bit quicker on the next ones. We let a lot of conversation for that one because it was clearly a really important issue for people. I missed one, sorry. The next point is the option paper for cultural diversity and LGBTIQ plus action plans. Councillors, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask? Clarifying questions of the officers? No? Do we have a mover of the motion? Councillor Gaetano Greco. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Jelly. Okay, does the mover wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Look, very briefly, I'm glad that this report has come to us because at least it gives us some indication of where we're at in relation to some important policy work that the council has to do. Whilst I understand the delay in producing these policies by the end of June, which was the end of the 4-year council plan. I understand that, but I must say I am disappointed that we're not able to deliver to the community these important policies. And I say that with all respect to our officers and the organisation, because again, I appreciate the other pressures that we've had in terms of producing this work. Why this work is important is that Darebin Council is recognised. These are signature policy positions of this council that distinguishes this council from many other councils. A lot of people criticise Darebin Council for not adopting the 3 Rs, roads, rates and rubbish. We're a much more comprehensive council that tries to deal with the complexity of our community. And in our community, we have enormous complexity, whether it's socioeconomic polarisation, or whether it's cultural diversity, or whether it's sexual preference and identity. So these pieces of work are really critical that then help to inform our other policy work that we do as a council. So they're critical. And I look forward to the work coming back to us by the end of this year. I'm hoping that it could come back to us earlier. And I would stress, as the report says, and I'm hoping that we're able to follow through with this, is that we do effective community consultation in this space. Why that is important? Because we're dealing with already underrepresented groups within our community that don't necessarily come forward in consultative matters. So we've got a big task ahead of us to get this actions plan done correctly and done properly. And I just end on this final note. If you look at the cultural diversity of this city, nearly 60% of people in this city were either born overseas or have one parent born overseas. That's quite significant. We're not talking about a little minority rump somewhere in the corner of our city. We're actually talking about what the essence of our city is. And also, if you look in terms of the LGBT plus community, it's 10% of our community, which is double the state average. They're significant numbers, and we have an obligation to those communities to develop a very robust and a very rigorous policy. So I commend the work that's been done, and I hope to get the support of all councillors in relation to this recommendation.
Thank you. Does the seconder want to speak?
I'll reserve my right, and I believe there's an amendment that's been circulated on this one.
Yes, so I'm also would like to speak in support, but I would also like to offer a slight amendment which has been forwarded and I think is about to appear on screen. The amendment asks for the immediate engagement with the relevant council committees to inform them of where the individual pieces of work have progressed to and invites them to be included in the process of developing the plan starting in February. So just hoping that can be passed as an amendment.
I just check that Councillor Greco, that you're happy with that amendment? You are, and you're the seconder, so I presume you are too?
I'm the seconder, so yes, and I'll accept the amendment.
Apologies, you accept that, okay. So did you want to speak to it?
Sorry, no, I don't need to speak anymore, that's fine.
Okay. Have we got anyone opposed to this recommendation? Okay, we'll move straight to a vote then. So all of those in favour, please raise your hand, and that's passed unanimously. So thank you. Moving on to 9.4. 9.4 is about a new client fee for delivered meals services. So yeah, is there any questions of the staff? Clarification questions.
Yes, a question for clarification, thank you. I just wanted to find out, it spoke about how there's no climate or sustainability sort of to be factored in, but I was wondering what sort of packaging this company uses and if that was a consideration.
If I may, through you, Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you for your question. And at this point, I don't have that information on hand to be able to respond, but I'm very happy to take it on notice. My understanding, though, is the staff have done a thorough assessment as they worked through the process, and the two streams that are being supported were supported already. This is purely a information or a fee approval request. To charge a lesser fee for one of the options, but the process that determined the two suppliers was previously determined.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, do we have a mover for the motion? Councillor Jelly. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Arturi. Does the mover wish to speak?
Yes, I'll speak very briefly. So I wish to move the officer's recommendation. I think this is a very positive move that better meets the needs of our community members who rely on this delivered meal service. It provides them with greater flexibility to suit their needs and also addresses budget pressures, which is the number one issue for many in our community at the moment, especially on those on low and government-supported incomes. It aligns really well with council strategic plans and policies, and I urge all councillors to support it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak? Okay, was that a reserving your rights? Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Okay, so we'll move straight to the vote. So can I ask for those in favour of this motion to raise your hand? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, 9.5 is the governance report. Does anyone have any questions of the officers in relation to this report? No. Do I have a mover for the motion? Is it up on the screen? Thank you. Just pop it up. Councillor Salkos. Do we have a seconder? Councillor O'Brien. Does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
In the interest of time, no thank you.
Okay, does the seconder wish to speak to the motion?
Also, in the interest of time, I'll hold speaking, but thank you for the staff for putting it together for us. Thank you.
Anyone want to speak in opposition to the motion? Okay, so we'll move along to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's carried unanimously. Thank you. 10 minutes. I think we might need to extend the meeting if we will need a procedural motion for that, Councillor Jelly.
Hi, Mayor. I'm happy to move a procedural motion for an extension of time of 30 minutes for the meeting.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. Was that you two? Yeah, thank you. All right, so we're now up to I presume there are no items to be tabled this evening. No? Terrific. Item 11. We're up to notices of motion. So the first one is the capping CEO remuneration package. This one is Councillor Greco.
Mayor, if I may, just prior to you starting, as you'll recall, all of the five GMs and myself will declare a direct conflict on this item due to the nature of it being CEO remuneration, and that's me, and it could be any of the team. So we are available for governance advice next door if it's required.
Thank you. I'll give them a moment to leave the room. Go on. Okay. Councillor Greco, do you wish to move your motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I wish to move the motion, but with your indulgence, Mayor, I've added an additional point which I've taken from Councillor O'Brien to make my motion 9 points. I circulated that earlier. Yes, that it appears there on the screen. So now the motion is 9 points, and I seek your indulgence in accepting this small change.
Okay. Yep. Okay, so do we have a seconder for the motion? We do. Councillor Sangster?
Yep. I'll second the motion for the purposes of hearing the debate, but I reserve my opportunity to speak.
Okay. Did you want to speak to the item?
Mayor, look, thank you, and I thank the councillor for seconding the motion. This motion is an important motion, councillors, and this motion really goes to the heart, apart from the subject matter in itself, but it really goes to the heart of building community confidence and also community trust in local government. What this motion essentially talks about is in relation to reviewing or looking at the CEO salaries in local government, not particularly our CEO here, but also in local government in general. As we know, over the years, CEO salaries in local government have increased exponentially relative to ordinary workers and staff salaries in councils, and we've noticed the hike that's occurred. We have to appreciate that it's a decision that councillors make, and councillors have discretion in determining what the CEO's salary is. And in determining that, we must not forget that it's public money that we are talking about, and the community has taken a heightened interest in relation to CEO salaries. I know in my campaigning, that was one of the key issues that community members had put to me, and that's why I'm putting this motion forward. The other point that needs to be said is that in the past, people are saying, well, this is new, this is novel, we don't normally do this. But I want to remind councillors, particularly the 7 new councillors that are here, in the past the council did consult with the community about the CEO recruitment. And what that consultation was to determine what sort of CEO did the community want the Darebin Council to employ. So we went out and consulted with the community in relation to that. This is an extension of that, in the sense that not only did we consult about the type of CEO that we wanted, now what this is proposing is that we look at the feasibility of consulting the community about what band a CEO in local government, and in particular in our case, in Darebin, ought to be paid. And I think the community has a right to participate in that debate. It doesn't mean that the council has to follow what the community says. It's always a recommendation to the council. It's one of the many factors that the council has to consider in determining what the CEO performance pay is. I think it's also really good timing at the moment in relation to doing this, because we're about to go through a CEO recruitment process, which will take us about 4 to 5 months to finalise. We could do this process in parallel with the consultant's process of finding a CEO replacement. And the other two final points is that obviously to write to the Minister about capping the CEO salaries, and also to write to the MAV, and I take on the point that our councillor colleague, in order to advocate with the MAV in putting this across the sector. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think the notice of motion put forward by Councillor Greco has a point of merit in terms of independent oversight of CEO salaries, but it also covers matters related to community consultation that seek to do things that are already covered in existing processes. Although we rightly consult with our community on many things, doing so as part of setting a salary range for the CEO role isn't part of the process already underway in line with the current charter and policy. And so I'm concerned about this putting our current process and timeline for recruiting a CEO in jeopardy. Given we've had an interim CEO for a number of months now, a state of affairs that is destabilising for the organisation and by extension our community, I don't think that we can do this in parallel and afford to open ourselves up to the risk given the very tight timeline that we have to work with. So at this point, Mayor, I would, should the opportunity arise, I'm foreshadowing putting my alternate motion that I shared earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. So that motion can be looked at depending on the results of this one. So if this one doesn't get up, we can look at that alternate motion. So does anyone else want to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Arturi.
Brief comments, Mayor. As Councillor O'Brien said, parts of this motion does indeed have merit. And I would agree with Councillor Greco that CEO salary and the increases of CEO salary might not be in line with community expectations. There are a few issues that I see with this motion. In particular, I think Councillor O'Brien canvassed them pretty well, and in particular the advice that we've received that on top of the already 4 to 5 months process, it's going to take an extra 4 to 5 months to go through this process, and without sort of foreshadowing the results of what might come of community consultation, I think we'd all have a bit of a ballpark figure of what the community may say in relation to that. Having said that, it is a really important thing to consider in the future, perhaps, consulting the community, that is, but given the current urgency of this function of council, that is to recruit and appoint a CEO, it is something that I don't think is in keeping with that urgent function. I think it's something that all councillors should think very carefully about when we are voting on this motion. Having said that, there are parts of it that I would be inclined to agree with, but that's a matter for this council.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move to the vote unless anyone else has a burning...
Mayor, I think I have a right of reply, given that there was...
You do, yes, go ahead.
Unless there's other speakers, that I'm not sure.
Yep, apologies, you do, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I've listened really carefully to the speakers that have spoken against this motion, but I really fail to see what the anxiety is in relation to going to the community, or the prospect of going to the community, because if we read the motion carefully, it's saying that we put this proposition to the CEO committee, and for the CEO committee to get back to council about how this could be carried out. So we're not embarking on it straight away. We're actually seeking a report from the, and I took that as advice from officers about how we should go about this. But the fundamental point, councillors, I mean, we've all talked about this here tonight, is about community participation. Again, I highlight, councillors, that that is one of the number one sore points of this community. We spoke about this in relation to previous motions, and we should not shy away from embarking on a process that I hope that we can in regards to establishing what an appropriate, or getting advice from the community like we get advice from other sources, whether it's private consultants, recruitment firms, whether it's in relation to what is happening in the state government sector, etc. Why don't we talk also to our community about this issue, because our community has a deep interest in relation to this. And I'll just end with this final note. Again, councillors, this is a way of building further confidence and trust with the community, that we are having conversations with them about matters that they have an interest in. Let's not try and apply tactics or other ways of trying to hide behind processes that this can't be done. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. The resources are here to make that happen. Let's make this motion be passed, so like that we can get a report on how this can actually be done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go to a vote. So can I ask for all those in favour to please raise your hand? In favour. Sorry, raise your hand. I wasn't raising mine, I was talking about. Okay, and all those, so Councillor Greco, and all those against, please raise your hand. Okay, so that's Councillor Arturi, Councillor Boglis, Councillor Dimitriadis, Councillor Jelly, Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Sangster, Councillor Salkos. So we now move to the alternate motion. So can we bring that one up on the screen, please? So do we have... It's coming, I believe. Yeah, have you got it? Do we have... You're putting the motion forward, but I want to ask if there's a seconder for the motion. Yes, we have Councillor Jelly. Okay, so does the mover wish to speak?
Yes, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So as councillors are aware, I circulated an amendment over the weekend, and I thank those that provided feedback over that time. Based on further feedback from Councillor Greco received late this afternoon, I've updated my approach to change to presenting an alternate motion, as shared with everybody again prior to the meeting. So As I mentioned, I think the notice of motion put forward by Councillor Greco has a point of merit in terms of the independent oversight, but I'm concerned about the NOM as a whole putting the current process and timeline for recruiting a CEO in jeopardy, and I just don't think we can afford to open ourselves up to that risk right now. No offence to our interim CEO, who is very ably leading the organisation, but it is so important that we secure a high calibre permanent CEO for Darebin as soon as possible, so they can work with the new councillors and steer the organisation to deliver the significant body of work that we had ahead of us and serve to improve our community in the time ahead. The position put forward by Councillor Greco indicates that Council have full discretion in determining terms and conditions of the CEO employment contracts and total remuneration packages, but this isn't the case. The Local Government Act, in fact, dictates that we are required to have regard to the Victorian Government wages policy and any determination of Victorian independent
Point of order,
remuneration.
that statement is incorrect. Council does have full discretion. We were told that by the chair of the CEO Employment Matters Committee. So I think that statement needs to be withdrawn in relation to not having discretion.
Full discretion for what?
Determining, we have to take into account other things to determine the remuneration packages, so I don't believe that gives us full discretion because we have to work in line with other things that are in the Act.
I think that's correct. Your point is correct. Yeah.
Thank you. So that the tribunal's guidelines are governed by a set of guiding principles which include that remuneration should be fair and reasonable, and also it should be set at a competitive level to attract and retain talent and people. The rationale for the NOM also indicates there's been an increase of 80 to 90,000 in 8 years, which I agree at first glance does sound like a lot, and the amount overall is a lot of money. There's no denying that. But if you run the figures through the RBA inflation calculator, the increase is actually in the expected ballpark with an average annual inflation rate of 3%. We heard earlier so we didn't debate that bit earlier, but we have processes. We were going to talk to the CEO Employment Matters Committee, and we have processes in place under that. These are best practice processes. We have a charter, we have a policy, we have a committee, and we have an expert chair on that committee. And I think that has set us up really well, and we should be proud of that. The officers have advised that undertaking an additional step to consult directly with the community at this point would result in a 3 to 4 month delay and an additional unbudgeted cost of up to 15,000 to progress the recruitment process from June rather than February. And I just don't see how they can work in parallel because we are going to be diverting staff time and effort. So as I've said, we do go to the community on lots of things, but we need to follow the processes that we have in place at this stage. And we can still advocate to the Minister to have the relevant associations support the important work of looking at the independent oversight of CEO salaries. And I definitely think we should be seeking to do that.
Okay. I need to.
All right. Yeah, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I've forgotten who the second was now. Thank you. Councillor Jelly, do you want to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will briefly. Thank you, Mayor. I thank Councillor O'Brien for bringing these suggestions to us for consideration, and in doing so, I note that the state government's wages policy has barely kept up with inflation in recent years, and I say that as an Assistant Secretary who represents members who work in the public sector here in Victoria. CEOs hold a high degree of responsibility for delivering on the annual council plan and must give due regard to the complex regulatory environment that councils operate in. That stretches from everything, to everything in the Local Government Act to the Roads Management Act, human rights legislation, the Health and Safety Act, the Privacy Act, and all the regulations under employment law, just to name a few. We must give due consideration to the urgency with which we need to progress our urgent matter on CEO recruitment, on that process at the moment, given that we have an interim CEO with an expiry date on his contract coming up in not too short a time. So I welcome the opportunity for us to debate the guiding principles around setting CEO salaries, and I believe that this is a concern that all Victorian councils hold. In this context, given that the Independent Remuneration Tribunal sets the salaries of other government sector executives, we should be seeking to ensure local council CEO salaries are set by an independent tribunal that is consistent with the tiered ranking of different councils across Victoria. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Have we got any other councillors? Does anyone want to speak against this motion. Councillor Greco.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be speaking against certain elements of this motion. Whilst a lot of my points in my previous motion that failed here, disappointingly, I must say, there are many points have been resuscitated in this motion. What this motion does not do, councillors, it removes the key stakeholder, one of the key stakeholders, which is our community. This motion basically, again, and I've had experience of this in the past, this motion waters down what is the actual purpose and intent of involving the community in a process that they should be legitimately involved in. I understand fully, and I've been involved with various CEO recruitment processes and tried to sort of improve on them and make them more accountable as we go along, and not just leaving it to experts and to people that have all the knowledge around this space.
Stick to the topic, please.
Yes, we have processes. Yes, we have a committee. Yes, we have a chair. But what we don't have is community input into this process. If we're shy of community input into this process,
Point of order, Mayor.
I think
we're debating this motion, not the original motion.
Yeah, I think you've made those points in the
Sorry?
first debate. You've made those points in the first debate, so, and they're not in this, they're not a part of
I'm
this
speaking to the
amendment.
motion, what is actually absent in the motion. That's what I'm doing. So if I'm allowed to continue.
Yeah, you are repeating things you've already said, is all I'm saying. So
Sure.
if you can keep it to new points, that would be good.
Yeah, but I'm speaking to this motion. Yeah, I'm not speaking to the previous motion. I'm speaking to this motion.
Yeah, continue.
Yeah, thank you. So if we're shy or we're reluctant to actually have the community in this conversation about the CEO, setting a CEO salary and setting the appropriate bandwidth, then where is the courage, councillors, to deal and to work with our community? If we don't want to do that, how do we explain to our community the decisions that we're making? Where do we get our input from our community in relation to this matter? So I urge councillors to really think about what the absence of this motion is.
Thank you.
Notwithstanding that lots of these points are positive because they carry off from my previous motion.
Thank you. Okay. You want to speak for the motion? Okay. Last speaker, though. If we're going to move on.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on the point of community feedback and representation, we've all been elected to represent our community. If someone sends us an email and says, oh, we think the CEO should be paid X amount, or we think you should take this into account when recruiting a CEO, it's incumbent upon us as councillors to consider that in the decision-making process. I see that as a very clear, legitimate way of taking community feedback and feeding it into this process. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our interim CEO, who's done a fantastic job in guiding us through these early stages of this term. But this motion, I think, strikes a sensible balance and addresses the concerns raised by councillors in the original debate on this item. I do want to focus on the last point. I think it's the last point, the one that alludes to the MAV. And as the peak body, it's something that, and this was of course something that was included in the original motion from Councillor Greco, and I thank him for that, something that we, it is an appropriate forum to raise this item, and if this motion is carried and then a further motion is carried at the next meeting, and we as a council agree on a motion that can be put to the MAV State Council in May, I as Darebin's delegate will be happy to present that in that debate at that meeting, and I look very much forward to debating that first with councillors and then hopefully at the MAV in May.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move to the vote, so can I just ask for all those in favour of supporting this motion?
Sorry, Mayor, just a procedural matter. In my interpretation of the governance rules on page 18, under section 4.5, the mover gets a right of reply. I do understand we're trying to
so it's
wrap
an
things up
amended
quickly.
motion, so
it's not an amended motion, it's the
My
foreshadowed
understanding
motion.
is-
There have been no amendments passed or on this motion
Did
that's
apply
before
this in that way to the last one and was told that was correct, so you want to check? We don't actually have much in our governance rules around amended alternate motions, which is why we're looking
I'm really
to
sorry
the
to do this, Mayor,
alternate
but
motions.
I don't believe I'm barking up the wrong tree here. I think the mover of the previous motion was actually entitled to a right of reply.
Okay. Governance advice, thank you. You want a right of reply? Does Councillor O'Brien want a right of reply? Because if not, we can just hold this for the next meeting.
Thank you, Mayor.
Just a yes or no question at the
Yes,
moment.
brief,
Okay.
very brief.
I'm going to say yes if you're going to keep it brief, and we will try and iron out this for the next meeting. Alternative.
Sure. Just to acknowledge, I think that we all came to this place to engage with our community, to represent our community, to hear from our community. And there are multiple ways in which we do that. Maybe ideally that would be part of the process right now, but where we are timing-wise, we are really hamstrung to get to a point where we've got a stable CEO for this organisation that we can all develop a relationship and work strongly with, and that can guide the staff to do the work that our community desperately wants them to do. So I just, again, urge us to go, this is where we're at right now, we need to move on. And if there may be other points to improve this process, then that's great. You're an experienced councillor, you've been here for a long time. That opportunity has been available all of this time. If that's just something that's just come to you now and it's really important, let's find other ways to think about it. But for where we are right now, we need to just move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Mayor,
you.
if I may, if we can separate
Gaetano,
point 5 and vote on that separately, I would...
Point 5?
Yeah, point 5 of the motion above. If we can draw that out and vote on that point separately and vote for the rest of the points
Sorry, we're going
together.
ahead with the vote. So, okay, so can we just go, those in favour of the motion, please?
Sorry, Mayor. I made a request and about separating...
And I have the ability to say yes or no to that request. So we're running very late, so I just think it's best to just do it as in one go.
Sorry, Mayor, I can't hear you.
My judgment is that we're running very late and it makes sense to just do it in one go.
It's your call, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. So those in favour, I'll call again. Hands up. Okay, so that's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item, oh yeah, we'll get the staff back in. The next item is the Alphington Community Battery. I'll just wait for the staff to return. Okay. Thank you. Great. Okay. So, Councillor Demetriadis, do you want to move this motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. When it gets on the board.
Yeah, go ahead.
So thank you, Mayor. In 2023, the federal Labor government, thanks to the member for Cooper, Jed Carney, for her support, awarded $500,000 to Gemina to install a community battery in Alphington. To avoid any confusion, this grant was awarded in addition to the state Labor government's grant that was awarded to Village Power to also install a community battery in Alphington, which is we decided last month at 2 Wingrove Street, and that was thanks to the member for Northgate, Kat Theophanous.
I'm just going to get you to hold there. I didn't call for a seconder.
Oh, sorry.
That's right. So thank you, Councillor Salkos, and continue on, Councillor Dimitriadis.
Thank you.
Apologies.
So thank you to the governments for these grants to install a community battery in Alphington. In 2023, Gemina did approach Darebin Council to support the installation of the community battery after they received the funding from the federal government. And Pitcher Park was suggested as a potential site. Unfortunately, to date, no agreement has been reached between Council and Gemina, and it would be a shame to lose this opportunity that has significant benefits for both the environment as well as the wider community. Therefore, this motion calls for Council to urgently write to Gemina to confirm our commitment to having the community battery in Alphington. As we heard tonight, the local community are very supportive of having the battery at Pitcher Park in Alphington, as was originally suggested in 2023, and through the expertise of local residents who work in this industry, they even identified a site for the installation of the battery, which was also expressed in the petition that was tabled here tonight. And that particular site is the southeastern end of Pitcher Park, near the corner of Keith Street and Parklands Avenue, Alphington, which already received over 100 local signatures. So they've made it clear that it's been local people who signed the petition. So this site, as we also heard tonight, would not incur a net loss of open space. And in fact, everyone would benefit from additional trees being planted on the site, which is part of the federal government grant to also enhance the amenity of the area.
Okay, you've only got a few seconds left.
Yes. Therefore, I'm recommending this motion to all councillors to immediately write to Gemina to confirm our commitment to the battery and urgently investigate and report back to councillors about locating the battery at this site. So thank you.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak to the motion?
I'll reserve my right.
Okay. Does anyone want to speak in opposition to the motion? Councillor Sangster?
Sorry, I don't want to speak in opposition, but I would like to speak with concern. Is that possible?
I think so. Fresh.
Okay. So speaking with concern, and to note that while I am super excited that there's another community battery proposed in Darebin, and I want to thank council staff for working closely with Gemina to progress this project so far and identify suitable locations and working towards bringing a report. What is not clear to me, and this is my concern, is why this has been brought forward as a notion of motion when the work is already underway. Council officers have spoken to Gemina several times in the last fortnight, so why we all need to urgently write letters, I'm a little unclear. And Gemina has outlined that they're happy to work with us and to identify a suitable location for the community battery. It seems to me that it would be more appropriate for this motion to call for council to make a general commitment in support of community battery projects as a way to publicly signal our support for renewable energy transition in line with the climate emergency plan. Furthermore, I'm concerned that this norm could be seen to infer that council staff are not performing their work and progressing on projects effectively and efficiently with the best interests of the community and good governance at the heart of what they do. I'm concerned that this pattern of calling for reports when the information is not readily at hand is interfering with the effective and efficient operations of council, and that this is why, in part, we have municipal monitors overseeing governance. So I'm totally in support of community batteries, but I don't think any of this is necessary.
Okay. Does anyone else want to speak to this? Oh, I've got the seconder. Anyone else want to speak to this item? So I'll go back to Emily Dimitriadis, Councillor Dimitriadis, for a right of reply.
Thank you, Mayor. So it's interesting what has been stated here today. This project was brought to well, interesting enough, I don't even know when it was bought until I asked the question, because we weren't informed about, councillors weren't informed last term about this particular grant. So from research, it was in 2023 that the federal government awarded this money, and Jemina approached Darebin Council. The only time I found out about this particular project was during campaigning. So on the campaign trail, there was a lot of people who said, look, there's a new battery that's coming in. They weren't happy with the site, so can we investigate a potential new site? That was the first time I heard about it, which was, about 3-4 months ago now. And so I raised the question with council, as you do, and that's what brings me to raising this this motion, this nom. So I'm sorry if you weren't informed or what the case was. That was certainly not my intention. I'm sure it wasn't the officers, but I think it's certainly not about the officers not performing their work. It's just to bring this to light and to make sure that we actually get the battery. This is about committing to getting the battery in Alphington. There's been a lot of talk about where the battery should go, and unfortunately, that's been the major hold up. So this is actually just committing to it. And the funny thing is, the residents want the battery at this particular site, which apparently hasn't been investigated. So hence the motion.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to a vote now. So all those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. Okay, so that's Councillor, that's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we will move on. Darebin Parklands Management Committee and Darebin Parklands, Councillor Dimitriadis again. Do you want to move the motion? Just move it.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would like to move it.
Okay, and do we have a seconder? Councillor Sangster. So would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Councillor Sangster, for seconding this. I believe it's a really important motion. And firstly, I'd like to start off by expressing my sincere thanks to the Darebin Creek Management Committee, the Darebin Parklands Rangers, and all the volunteers for their incredible efforts in assisting the rehabilitation of the Darebin Creek Corridor and Darebin Parklands for over 40 years. The transformation from a former tip site to what we see there today has been...
Councillor Dimitriadis, I'm going to have to interrupt because we're going to need another procedural motion to extend the meeting again, or we can do it one more time. So is anyone... Councillor Arturi for an extra 30 minutes, and Councillor O'Brien seconding. Thank you. Oh, all in favour? Thank you. Okay. Sorry, continue on, Councillor Dimitriadis. Apologies.
Not a worry. So, yes, firstly, I wanted to thank the Darebin Creek Management Committee, all the rangers and all the volunteers for their incredible efforts. Darebin Creek Management Committee, or DCMC as we like to call it in short, is a highly valued organisation. However, over the past few years, their funding has been at risk, and that's not just by Darebin Council, but also Banyule Council. In fact, Darebin's MOU with DCMC is due to expire in 5 months' time, and Council has still not decided whether it will continue to fund DCMC. This has caused enormous stress for the organisation, the staff and the volunteers, as well as the community, because their future has become uncertain. So I'm raising this motion for a report to come back to Council that looks into a long-term MOU with DCMC to avoid this uncertainty happening every few years, as well as the possibility of increasing the small amount of funding that the Council does provide to the organisation every year. And I hope everyone can support it. Thanks.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Yes, just briefly, I'd like to speak in support of the notice of motion. I'd like to commend the motion's proposal to explore a long-term MOU. As we all know, the past 40 plus years of environmental restoration in the Darebin Parklands and Creek demonstrates that significant ecological projects require sustained vision and consistent stewardship. A long-term agreement would improve operational effectiveness, enable more strategic planning, ensure continuity of environmental management, and would leverage existing governance structures. Darebin Parklands is precious to our ecology as a whole, and her future must be protected. A long-term MOU with the current team is an integral part of that protection. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wants to speak against this motion? Okay, we're going to move to the vote. Everyone in favour, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. Carried unanimously. We will move on to... this one's a motion that I'm putting forward, so I'm going to ask the Deputy Mayor to come and swap seats with me, take over the chair.
Mayor Alaris, do you wish to move this motion?
I do.
Thanks, you may speak. Oh, sorry. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Yeah, oh, wonderful. Councillor Greco, does the mover wish to speak?
I do. Thank you. Hopefully this is a quick one because I think it's a really incredible program that we're I'm asking you to provide some support to here. So, Councillors, I'm asking that you support a motion this evening to provide support to an important community program. The motion is essentially to receive a report at the February Council meeting to consider the impacts of providing short-term funding to the complex support program until at least the end of June 2025. So the complex support program is delivered by Diverse, which is the Darebin Information Volunteer and Resource Centre, in partnership with the Reservoir Neighbourhood House. It's been delivered since August 22. So you can see up there the figures that in that first 2 years it saw more than...
Recording stopped.
Oh. Okay. Can we get the recording up?
Will just be a minute to wait.
Will I continue?
Oh, we'll just wait. Thank you, Mayor. Oh, we'll just wait.
Recording in progress.
Oh, we're back on.
Back? Okay. So in its first 2 years, the program saw more than 1,500 community members. It's a really vital service. It provides support, counselling and referrals to people who experience really significant disadvantage, vulnerability and social isolation. People are presenting to this service commonly have one or more of family violence issues, family breakdowns, social isolation, alcohol and other drug issues and mental health issues, and or are requiring financial and housing support. So the program is funded by Council until the end of February this year. It was initially funded in response to COVID, but Diverse have been reporting that they're seeing more and more people experiencing complex and multiple issues, partly because of the success of the program, partly because also of some of the cost of living issues affecting people at the moment. So I think it fits very nicely with and helps us to achieve our current strategic plan. And so, you know, I think it would be, I think it's really important for our vulnerable people in our community that we continue to support it at least until the end of June. So the continuation of the funding would allow that people experiencing significant vulnerability to continue to benefit from this important service and allow Diverse and the Reservoir Neighbourhood House time to investigate future funding. So I hope that you will support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to say a few words and I commend the Mayor for putting this motion forward. Just as background, Diverse actually requested money last year as part of the budget process. Unfortunately, for some reason, the previous council did not support Diverse to provide them funding for this particular project. It was really unfortunate. I believe that better decisions could have been made last year, and I'm glad that this notice of motion actually gives us the opportunity to revisit the program and revisit possibly funding of this particular project. I think what needs to be said is that this program is not just a simple handout. while simple handouts are reported, and Diverse has communicated to me in the many meetings that I've had with them, how the queues are getting bigger and bigger and bigger as a result of the cost of living crisis and the vulnerability and the socioeconomic disadvantage of many members in our community. So what this project does is that it provides a wraparound service, a more complex, a more sophisticated service to actually help people understand what their issues are, and also to seek advice and referrals to people who are able to actually support them. I commend the service. In June last year, I strongly supported this project, and it was one of the amendments that I had put forward to try and change the budget priorities last year. It got defeated, unfortunately, and I'm glad that it's back, and I'm really looking forward that we are able to support Diverse and give them this money. From a council perspective, it's only a little bit of money if you think of our $200 million that we deal with, but for the community that this serves, it goes a really long way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greco. Are there any other councillors who'd like to speak to the motion? Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you. I guess I have a couple of notes about this. So Diverse and Reservoir Neighbourhood House absolutely do amazing work in our community, as do all of our neighbourhood houses, as do all of our community services. And we all know that they're stretched in all of the ways at the moment. And that real need is there in the community. And we're so incredibly lucky that we have these amazing organisations locally in Darebin to serve our community. So my issue is not with supporting Diverse at all, or Reservoir Neighbourhood House. And I'm not going to stand in the way of this motion, I think, but I just, again, want to raise concern about the NOM process and what we're seeing. Based on the advice of officers, this will result in $35,000 that is currently unbudgeted. And as far as I understand it, the NOM process is not supposed to bring us into territory that's asking for money more than $5,000. So again, I just think it shows we have some things that we need to tidy up with this process. And I hope we can do that soon, and that we can find the ways to fund these organisations properly through the new budget and have them continue to do the great work that they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bryan. I just wanted to clarify that this particular NOM is calling for a review of the budget process, so a report, so it's not over $5,000. So it's within the NOM range. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Yes, Councillor Jelly, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Through you, Deputy Mayor, I would just like to use this time to actually kind of sneakily ask a couple of questions of officers for them to include in the report, because I didn't get my hand up in time to say I had a couple of questions, which is mainly around why the original funding wasn't continued all the way through to the end of the financial year. That seems to be quite irregular, so I'm really hoping that in supporting this motion that calls for a report to come to us in February, that some of those questions can be answered to give us more background. And I reiterate Councillor O'Brien's concerns around the NOM process, and note that a notice of motion is a useful way for a councillor to raise an issue which doesn't require advice or a lot of consideration by staff. But clearly we need a bit more advice and information around some of these topics that are coming to us. So it'd be great if we could find another way to actually bring these to our attention, given that we have so many people. Sorry, I'm happy to speak there.
10.11B, it's irrelevant to the matter that's currently being discussed.
Yes, would you like to rephrase your arguments, Councillor Jelly? We're talking about the diverse motion NOM rather than NOMs in general. So I think we just stick to the topic on hand.
Oh, thank you. My apologies. I was merely seeking to address the fact that there is information that's not at hand to us as councillors about the reasoning behind the shortfall in funding for this program. And so I'm hoping that will be brought to us in the report in February. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Are there any other councillors who'd like to speak to the NOM? No? If there are no other council, sorry, does the Mayor, would she like a right of a reply?
I think just the only thing I'd just add to it is my understanding was that it was funded and assumed that it would not be needed beyond February, but clearly it's shown that it does. It's a really big need, so that's why the short-term funding, from my understanding. So yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. If there's no other speakers, I might put the item to vote. All those in favour? Oh, wonderful. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. And I'll now ask the Mayor to resume the chair.
I think we have just one more item. Is that correct? Oh, there's no urgent business, I presume. Good. We're going to move along. One more item. We've got 24 minutes left. Getting close. So yes, this one is in a confidential conversation about the... Yeah, sorry, this item is about the appointment of CEO recruitment agency. As such, it's designated confidential because it has personal information. Being information, if released, would result in unreasonable disclosure of information about any person, their personal affairs, private commercial information, and information provided by a business, commercial or financial undertaking that, if released, would unreasonably expose the business, commercial or financial undertaking to disadvantage pursuant to section 3(1)(f) and G, and I think that's, what is that? 2 of the Act. Thank you. Yes, we will close the meeting to the public and
Mayor, before you do close the meeting, at the beginning of the meeting, I said that I had a conflict of interest in relation to this particular item.
Thank you.
And my conflict of interest is as a councillor, and it's a material conflict of interest. So I will not participate in the debate, nor will I participate in the decision that deals with this confidential matter.
Thank you for reminding about that. And
thank you.
Is there a conflict with the staff as well? No. Okay.
They'll be toppling off.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Greco. So is there a councillor... thank you, Councillor Arturi.
Yeah, I'm happy to move that in accordance with 66(2), that we close meetings to members of the public so we can consider this item.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Thank you. Does the mover wish to speak? Okay. Second. All in favour? Thank you. Okay. We will close the meeting then to the public. Thank you. We will be back, but only to say to close the meeting. I think that's it, actually. So, yep, thank you very much. I now declare the meeting closed to the members of the public at 9:39 and request officers to cease the